Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to our second part of the Zennio webinar series we're running. Today we're looking at capacitive touch keypads, which is a bit more frilly in the fun part of what people see, so it should be an interesting one. We're joined today by Javier and Vidar from Zennio UK again. Thanks for coming along, guys, and doing this for us. And also Steve, our technical sales manager in the South. Again, Steve's been involved and used Zennio for years and years in his previous role and things, so he's a big advocate of the product. And Steve obviously knows the product inside out, so he's here to help. Steve, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. So we're going to be looking at the, as Paul has said before, the fluffy end of the system. So it's the bit where obviously the clients can make their own designs. You can assist through that, or you can even hand over the design to the client. So this is the really exciting front end stuff. So I'll hand over to Javier to take us through the technical details of those. Obviously, anything going on after this, then please do contact me in the first instance, and I'll do everything I can to obviously help you. So thanks a lot for joining us, and I'll hand over to Javier. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I'll be sharing my screen now. So as Paul said, this is the second webinar of the series we're running with my KNX stores. Thank you, Steve and Paul, for having us again here. We'll be seeing our new, all our capacitive touch keypads or switches. You can see in the screen 3 different email addresses: support@zennio.co.uk. In case that's an email I'll be getting myself. Support@zennio.com, that's the general support email at Zennio for technical questions, in-depth technical questions, questions you have, for example, about the material a device is made of, or so very in-depth technical questions. And of course, team@myknxstore.co.uk, that's Paul's and Steve's team. And they are usually able to manage all your questions and queries. And of course, every commercial question must be asked to them. So team@myknxstore.co.uk. Let's get started. So capacitive touch switches, just to mention, all our switches are not, you don't actually have to press the button. These are capacitive sensitive. So just by touching the bottom where it is, it's not a touch panel, it's a different thing, it's just a capacitive sensor. So when you touch the panel, when you touch where the button is, the button responds. The first family or the newest family in the terms of the capacitive touch switches is the flat family. We've got the flat in 4 different versions, 1, 2, 4, or 6 buttons. These are fully customizable, so you can print an image, you can print, and we will see at the end of the presentation the configurator, which is called TMD app or Touch My Design app, and this can be accessed through the website. So you can, before you make an order, you place your order, you can actually play with the design tool and see whether you can the design you want can be met with our devices. Flat family has a proximity and luminosity sensor, so the device can go inactive to inactive status, and when you put your hand some 5 to 10 centimeters away from it, it detects proximity. This can also be combined with a KNX object, so when you put your hand close to it, if you want all the devices in the room, for example, to light up whenever you put your hand next to any of them, it will all light up. Backlit icons, so the full backlit here, the full icon here is backlit. It's not just as it happened with our previous family, the TMD, where you had a small LED in the middle of the icon. So here with these icons, with the flat family, the full icon is backlit when it's on. Of course, configurable in terms of that. Of how bright that backlit is. 3 different levels plus night, day, and so night and day modes. And inside night and day, you have then on, off, and inactive. So you can have 3 different levels during day. One would be for the icon on, another one for the icon off, and the third one for when the flat is inactive. So if you've been for 10 seconds without playing around the display or sorry, the flat panel, it can go completely off, or during the night, for example, stay at 1%, 10%, something like that. So you can actually see it. It's not glowing or it's not very bright, but you can actually see something there, and so you can during the night you could distinguish what icon you are actually pressing. They all have a built-in temperature probe. They have one thermostat. This is a Zennio thermostat, so again, you can use it with the internal temperature probe or with a different temperature probe, with the KNX object as the temperature set point, or sorry, as the temperature input. And it also has 2 analog digital inputs that can be used for a binary switch, a push button, another temperature probe, presence detector, a Zennio presence detector, any of those. So we've got the flat and we've got the flat display. Flat display is only one version, so one button for the flat display. Again, fully customizable with the same proximity and luminosity sensor, with the backlit icons, with built-in temperature probe, with one thermostat and 2 analog digital inputs. And it's adding a 2.4-inch display, which can be configured actually as, and sorry, just noticed a small thing here. Yeah, it can be configured as a regular page, so divided in this, that would divide the screen in 4 boxes. Each of them can then, as you can see in the image, be divided in 2. So you could have up to 8 different boxes in the screen, or just 4 as the one here in the image. Or you can have a thermostat page, so that's configured by parameters. If you select the thermostat page, you will have in the middle the temperature, and you can select whether it's the set point or whether it's the current temperature. If you want the set point bigger or the current temperature bigger. On the right, always the fan coil speed, and then in the left, 2 free use icons you can use for if you have a light, or here leakage or a window open. In all the new devices, and that's not only for the flat, also for the flat 55, which we will see later, and the Z35, you can use a window open alarm, for example, which will display a window actually being opened. So that's there if you want to use it in the thermostat page. So that's the flat family. Again, flat 1, 2, 4, or 6, fully customizable, and flat display with 5 buttons. In terms of how big it is, it's 81.1 millimeters by 81.1, so it's a complete square. It fits a UK standard back box. It just has to be done correctly because 81 by 81 is not massive. It's not very big. So as long as the back of the device is correctly finished, it fits standard back box. As you can see, it's quite slim, 9 millimeters. There's no shadow gap because there's no frame around it. And other than that, well, this is the flat display, but it's the same size as the flat. We now go to the flat 55. A bit of the same principle here. Just 1, 2, or 4 buttons. So it's no place for the 6-button version. A flat 55 and flat 55 display are meant to be mounted into a 55 by 55 frame, and we will see in a second they're compatible frames. I'll get into the frames in a second. Again, fully customizable with the proximity and luminosity sensor, with backlit icons, with one thermostat. And there's a bit of a difference here with actually all the other Zennio touch panels and switches. It has two analog digital inputs, but the temperature probe is not built in the device. So you actually have to use one of the inputs for the temperature probe. Flat 55 doesn't include in the box when you order the flat 55. It does not include the temperature probe, but flat 55 display does include the temperature probe. So when you order the flat 55 display, you actually get the probe, and it's just a matter of wiring it into one of the analog digital inputs. There's a reason for that. So the device doesn't have a built-in temperature probe because it goes into a 55 by 55 frame. So that's a standard frame. And if you left the temperature probe inside the device or built in the device, you could have very wrong temperature measurements because that would be enclosed behind the frame. And that's why we actually didn't include it in the flat 55 nor the flat 55 display. And just because it makes more sense to use the thermostat with the flat 55 display, when ordering a flat 55 display, we include the temperature probe in it. Again, not built in. It comes in a something like 1.2 meter cable, something like that. So we've got quite a decent cable to wire that temperature probe. And you can configure the Zennio temperature probe, so the regular Zennio temperature probe, the Zennio temperature probe that comes with the display, or any other NTC temperature probe, as long as you know 3 given resistance points, so resistance temperature points. Flat 55 display, the only difference would be it has the display. It says 2.4 inches, and that's wrong. Sorry about that. Well, it's a regular, so a circular display in the center. It can be configured as regular thermostat. That is correct. So again, the screen would be split into 4 different parts with the regular configuration. And when a thermostat is the one that you can see here in the image, so you would have a temperature in the middle, an indicator in the bottom, and an indicator in the top. And you can select what it actually indicates. Other than that, it's always 4 buttons, but quite the same principle as the flat 55. So here's an example, for example, of the flat 55 into actually the Jung, I think that's a 550. So that's a flat a flat 55 4 button, a flat 55 display into Jung a 550 frame. We are currently just sorry about that. We are currently studying, designing, and manufacturing, or not just yet available, the 55 by 55 frames in white, gloss white, silver, and gray and black anthracite. So, and just to mention, there is a list in the website, which is this list you can see here. Of compatible frames. So that would be Gira, Jung, Schneider, and Elco. The flat 55, both the display and the regular version, come with an internal frame, a metal internal frame. You can use to actually make the device, align the device with the frame. So it's quite thin. We will go to the measures in the next slide. but sometimes the frames, the 55 by 55 frames, can be a bit bigger, a bit thicker. So both the flat 55 and flat 55 display always come with a 1 millimeter and a 3 millimeter plate you can insert behind the device to fit the frame perfectly and be aligned with the frame. So we've thought about almost everything here. In terms of the size, well, it's obviously a 55 by 55 device. And you can see how it's some, I think this is some 6 millimeters, something like that. It's not very thick at all. So it will fit the slimmest 55 by 55 frames. And as said, it includes the metal frames, or the inner frames, in case you have the frame, the 55 by 55 frame you're using is a bit thicker. And it fits a standard backbox, so anything that would mount a 55 by 55 frame. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. We now go to the older versions. These are still available, so still you can still buy them from my KNX store. We've got the Qwerty MD, and again, following the same principle as before, a Qwerty MD display. So a version with a display on it. Qwerty MD, again, in 1, 2, 4, and 6 button versions, fully customizable. There is a backlit LED, and this is what I was speaking about before. So it's not the full icon that's backlit. It's just an LED in the center of the icon that is backlit. So not the full icon, just the LED. That would be one of the biggest difference with the flat family. Another very big difference, you can see there's a frame here, while there was no frame in the flat family. So there is a bit of a shadow gap when using the TMD, the Qwerty MD. It also has a built-in temperature probe. It also has a thermostat, a Zennio thermostat that can be configured with the built-in temperature probe or with an external temperature probe. And 2 analog digital inputs, again, for binary inputs, such as a push button or regular switch, magnetic contact, and another temperature probe or presence detector, a Zennio presence detector. And the Qwerty MD display, this is a 5 button, so it's always going to be 5 buttons. Again, fully customizable. Again, the backlit LED, the built-in temperature probe, 1 thermostat, 2 analog digital inputs, and in this case, a 1.8-inch display with, so here it's always what would look like the regular configuration in the flat family. Here it's always regular, so there's no option to define a thermostat page, or sorry, a thermostat view, and it always looks like you can see in the image. Again, the screen is divided in 4, and each of those boxes can be divided into 2. You can see it's a bit bigger, so it's 90.2 by 90.2 millimeters, whereas the flat family was 81 by 81. So you can see it's a bit bigger, almost a centimeter bigger. And it still fits, well, it fits a standard backbox, a UK backbox. And in this case, well, because it's bigger, it covers a bit more of the finishing of the wall. So of the plaster in this case. And you can see it's a bit thicker in this case. It's also 12 millimeter, whereas the flat family is only 9 millimeter. And you can see because of the frame, you have a small shadow gap behind the device. Other than that, it's quite the same device as the flat. You can see it looks differently, but the principle is quite the same. And just to mention again, the differences would be the frame. So flat family has not got a frame on it, so no shadow gap in flat. the display in the flat and the flat display can be configured as regular or thermostat, which looks more like a thermostat. It's easier to imagine it working as a thermostat. But again, in terms of buttons, is mostly the same. Backlit icons in the flat, whereas backlit LED, so just a small LED in the middle of the button here. And other than that, I can't really recall any more differences. So you can still play with them and select one or the other. And they are both fully customizable. Yeah, and other than that, and well, of course, a bit bigger, the Qwerty MD than the flat. TMD display. Two versions of the TMD display. You have the TMD display 1 and the TMD display view. On the outside, they look exactly the same. They are exactly the same on the outside. It's just to mention, it's not two different application programs of the same device. So it's two different devices, 1 and view, although they look the same in the outside. TMD display 1 has 8 buttons plus buttons in the central area. So this is something not a lot of people know, because in the images we have in the catalog, you don't actually see them, but there are 2 buttons that can be used here in the middle. So that's up to 8 buttons. Sorry, I think just 1 button in the middle. Fully customizable as the flat 55 and the Qwerty MD. As in the Qwerty MD, backlit LED, so not the full icon is backlit, just the small LED in the middle. It has a built-in temperature probe. It has 1 thermostat, 2 analog digital inputs, and the same display as the Qwerty MD. So again, always to be configured in 4 different parts of the screen, each of them which can be divided into 2 boxes. And the difference with the TMD display view, this is a bit of a different controller. It has 8 buttons plus 2 page navigation buttons in the middle. It has 4 different pages, and the way to work with it is you see in the screen what you are controlling. So you will have button 1, looking at the screen, you would have button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in the screen, you see what each button is actually controlling. And as said, you can go with the central area of the device, you skip from one page to another. And what you do is you see, for example, light 1 is your button 3 in page 1. So you go to page 1 and then press button 3, and that's controlling light 1. You can configure it to control 2 buttons as a pair. So if you have a shutter, for example, or a blind, you can put blind 1, and then it will be up and down. If you go to page 2, and then button 1 and 2 would be a different thing, a light, another shutter, temperature control, whatever that is. But again, in the outside, fully customizable, backlit LED. It has a built-in temperature probe, 1 thermostat, 2 analog digital inputs, and a 1.8 inch display. The difference here in the display, what I was telling you before, is that you see what you are controlling with each button in the display. So you don't configure the display as in the TMD display 1 or in the Qwerty MD display, or nor the flat, nor anything like that. You will see what each button is doing in what page. Then we go into the TMD Plus. So in terms of size and the outside looking of the device is the same as the TMD display 1 and TMD display view, with the difference that it has no screen in the middle, no display. 4, 6, or 8 buttons, and there's always 5 buttons in the bottom row. It's fully customizable again. Again, it's not full, not the icon, sorry. It's a backlit LED in the middle of the icon, so not the full icon backlit. It has a built-in temperature probe, it has 1 thermostat, and it has 2 analog digital inputs. So in terms of the biggest one of them, you would have up to 13 buttons. That's 8 buttons in the big part of the device, and always 5 buttons in the bottom row. I think the image here with the RGB gives quite an idea of what you can do with the device. So different scenes here, shutter channel, and on-off, and then different direct colors with the LED, with the RGB LED. So I was saying TMD display 1, TMD display view, and TMD plus, sorry. They all are the same size, so that's 90.2 millimeters by 122. It fits a standard box. Same size, same thickness as the Qwerty MD, so 12.05 millimeters. So a bit thicker than the flat again. Well, and other than that, it fits, as said, the standard box. And now this is a small look into the Touch My Design app. So as you can see, you can add an image. This would be an example with a flat 55 display. So you can see the display in the middle. This is an image we've uploaded, and then you just configure whatever icons you want to configure. Just to mention, in terms of the icons, there is a huge icon library in the Touch My Design app, somewhere around 200 icons. So those are the ones that are backlit. If you, for example, include an icon here, you upload an image of an icon and you include it in the device where the button should be, that will not be backlit because that's actually treated as an image. So only the icons in the Touch My Design app library are the ones that are backlit. And so that's actually all. Just to go through it all fast, we've seen the flat family, flat and flat display, flat 55 to fit 55 by 55 boxes. You can actually see these compatible frames and non-compatible frames list in the website, in the Zennio website, if you go into flat 55 or flat 55 display. The Qwerty MD and TMD display, and the Touch My Design app. And that would be the range of capacitive touch switches. I think next Monday we will go into the touch panels. And now I've seen the chat having a little bit of activity, so sorry. So I will go into that. I don't know if you, of course, any questions you may have, we will try to address them. So now it's the right time to make those questions. And depending on the nature of the question, either Paul or Vidar or myself will try to answer it.
So there's been some questions, Javier, but a couple that haven't been answered is what's the resolution for the LED displays? Now, my understanding is it's different depending on the product, isn't it? So,
sorry?
The resolution for the display unit, what's the resolution for them now? Obviously, the different units have different resolutions, I guess.
Yes, I actually would have to check that because it's not high resolution, but it looks quite good. I can make, give me just 1 second. Are there any other questions?
There's back boxes, so do they fit into a standard UK back box? They're meant for European back boxes, aren't they, the products we went through today?
Yes, let me actually, because Vidar knows this better than myself, and this way I actually have time to plug this, turn this on.
Yeah. The answer when it comes to back boxes is yes, they do fit your UK back boxes. The only one which might have a problem is the flat and the flat display. That does also fit a UK back box, but it does require that the plasterer doesn't leave millimeter gaps beside the back box, you know, because it's only you know, because of its overall size. So it does cover a UK back box, and the screw distance fits perfectly onto a UK back box. It just requires that the plastering around the back box is well done. The Touch My Design and the bigger one and the Square and all the other one which are bigger, you can even get away with a sloppy plaster.
Okay, let me just.
So the answer is yes, if the plasterer has done their job.
Which isn't always yes.
In terms of the resolution, I might want to bring this up a little bit.
I've just got the data sheet up as we were talking, but the flat 55 display stated a 1.18 inch OLED display, 128 by 128 pixels. But obviously the size. Yeah,
but just so you can see, it looks quite good. It's not high resolution, but on the size, this is 2.4 inch. Well, it's a bit blurry, but that's, I think, my camera. But that would be the resolution of the device. So it looks quite good, actually, even with the small icons. And well, you can see there that, for example, a demand object that can be hidden. All of this can be hidden, can be. So you can play quite a lot with icons on it. It's none of them are set icons, as in many other manufacturers, which you have probably come across. But this is all fully configurable. Sorry.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. To be fair, they're the ones that have been answered in the chat. Just to recap them, the one question was about if you can change the design at a later stage, which was answered by myself and Vidar in slightly different ways, but the same outcome, I think. So if you design a switch through the My Design portal, and then the client changes their mind, you are able to change it, but it's not always as cost effective because you need to go to site, remove the switch, send it back to the factory, pay for it to get changed, which, as Vidar says, is less than a new switch, but then return to the site to fit it. So there's obviously costs involved for the client there from you. So it might just be as well buying a new switch.
Yeah. What I would say is that this is something I've done for the last 7 years in hundreds and hundreds, and sat down with integrators and customers. If you actually take the effort and plan it properly from the beginning, 99.999% of occasions you get it right, and it can be done in such a way so it is a little bit more general, so it allows you to make changes without necessarily having to change the design. So actually, very often I find it is a massive advantage, because it actually forces you to sit down with the customer and make some decisions. And when those decisions has been made, you get a sign off, and then so it's not left to the last minute, which very often happens, and then you know, you get delays and you can't get people to make their mind. He actually, this way of doing it actually focuses people's mind much more than other ways of doing it, and I've always found it to be a massive advantage. And we have done some absolutely humongous projects with this range of and the designs like MDUs, you know, up to several hundred apartments, and so far we haven't changed a single design. And only in the 7 years I've changed a design was one customer who basically changed their mind totally, and then bought 10 new switches because they could afford it and didn't give a toss.
Yeah, also I forgot to mention a very interesting feature on the flat family, that's the flat and the flat 55. They have a heartbeat. So for example, if you have an installation on a hotel, a commercial installation, or some big MDU for lease, and you have the apartments or the rooms or the different things in the installation monitored in a BMS, for example. The flat and actually all the new products, that stands for the actuators as well, and the touch panels, they have a heartbeat sign. So it's quite easy to monitor every device in the installation. That stands, as I was saying, for the flat as well. If not only if it gets stolen, or if it's unplugged from, or if it just dies for whatever reason and you have it monitored, the heartbeat is a very interesting functionality to have, because if monitoring everything, you can get an alarm, or you can whatever in the system telling you there's a device not responding or missing or whatever. So, and you can know that in real time actually. So that's a very interesting feature on the flat and the flat 55 that was not in the previous devices, and that has been included in all the range of the new products we have.
Yeah, it's a good product. It's a good feature. Another question that was asked and answered by Vidar was about is there an anti-theft locking system? So are you able to stop people just taking it off the wall?
On the Z41, the Touch My Design, there is a feature where you actually put it in and you press it down, and then it actually gets locked. And so you then have to it has to be pushed up in order to actually be able to remove it. So it's not very obvious, and I can't remember in the 7-8 years I've been working with this, we had a single one nicked anywhere. And
you'll also find that the actual, so, sorry to speak over you there, Vidar, but the actual like the frame that fits onto the back box has these two kind of keys that are marked in there. So when you put the TMD or the flat 55 in, there are strong magnets also on the back of the switch that actually will literally, if you pop it into the frame, it looks like it's a finished job, because it's very hard actually to remove it, because the magnets are so strong. But then with just one more downward push, that really does lock it into position. And yeah, you've really got to know what you're doing to try to remove it by getting underneath it and sort of giving it a good push up and then a good pull out. So yeah, that's a pretty good mechanism, I think.
Also, with the heartbeat mentioned, I mean, if for example on a hotel, if you have an hotel and you're worried about this being stolen in a hotel, from the BMS you actually know in real time something has been removed, if somebody actually figured how to remove it. But if it's removed, you know in the BMS in real time that device is missing, and you can actually act. So I think that's quite covered.
Yeah.
Can I answer the question in terms of delivery times on custom designs? We have several breakpoints. If it is up to 50 custom design units, the delivery time is 2 weeks, or maximum 2 weeks. Sometimes it's quicker than that, but we always say 2 weeks. If it's over 50 custom design units, because all of this is made to order, then it's 4 weeks. If it's more than 400 units, then we have to come back and give you a specific, then you will be given a specific delivery time on order. But you know, even with big MDUs or big project like that, you never order 400 units in one go, you know, because you tend to have partial deliveries over, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 months, you know. So but those are the breakpoints and the delivery time. 2 weeks for less than 50 units, 4 weeks for 50 to 400 units, and if it's over 400 units in one go, then we will give you a delivery time for that specific order upon order, you know, so you will know immediately. So
we are happy to supply for 100 units.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take the order for that as well.
You might be even able to push the delivery time down.
I would say at the moment we've had a few design orders recently, and they've been quicker than 2 weeks. So obviously, it just depends on if there's other big projects in and stuff. And at the minute, I would imagine there's not a lot of 400 unit projects being done, given we've just come out of COVID, etc. Coming out of COVID, hopefully. So yeah, it can.
No, you're quite right. Of course it isn't. But as I say, as these lead times which I mentioned is the maximum time, and as I also said, it's very often it takes less than the 2 weeks. So it's for a custom-made product, which it in reality is pretty fantastic. But we do have an extremely efficient manufacturing setup and a clean room where these are made, and which we have extended 2 or 3 times over the last 18 months because of the success of particularly the flat range, which has been an absolute amazingly big success.
Great.
I don't know if there are any other questions. Of course, the emails I said before, team@myknxstore.co.uk, is that it?
That's right.
team@myknxstore.co.uk and support@zennio.com for in-depth technical in case. But I always recommend to go to the distributor, to my KNX store here before, because they might be able to solve it faster than ourselves, although we tend to respond in under 24 hours. But of course, if you want to, just because they will also treat any commercial related issue in the question, I always recommend to go to the distributor first.
Yeah, we would too. Great stuff. Well, thanks, guys. It was a good one. Quick one today, but like we say, it's the fun stuff now. And the next one's touchscreens, I believe, on Monday.
Yeah,
So,
that's Monday, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Actually, let me just copy the registration link in case somebody hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
That's for the one on Monday. So there you go. That's the registration link for the touchscreens presentation on Monday, 9 a.m.
Great stuff. Well, thanks again, guys. It was a good one, and look forward to Monday. Thanks for everyone for joining us.
Thank you, everybody, for joining, and thank you, Paul and Steve, for having us here again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend, everyone.